Hey everyone, Nagobun here. We're about to get floaty with The Adventures of Chris, because it's not going to play itself. Now truth be told, this game's a bit of a mystery even to me. It was hanging out on my hard drive for months, and I had no idea where I had obtained it. Looking around on search engines, all I could find were results for an Ouya version, a version that I definitely couldn't play, because I definitely don't have an Ouya. As it turns out, the game also went to Steam Greenlight. I picked it up in a groupie's Build a Greenlight bundle, and the game itself has since made it through the Greenlight process, but we'll get back to that. In The Adventures of Chris, you play as a 7th grade version of the developer himself, Chris Gwynn, in what I can only assume is a true story. One late night in 1995, Chris was abducted by a young vampire in order to pad out the guest list at a birthday party. Once Kid Dracula's quote-unquote friends, Hedora, Polyester, and Screwloose show up, they expect party favors. But, since he's the kind of loser who doesn't get invited to birthday parties and didn't expect this development, Kid Dracula is forced to change Chris and the 3 other kids he abducted into playthings. Upon the other kids being claimed by their new owners, and Drac Jr. himself piecing out, Chris manages to escape his poorly constructed prison and floats his way up to the Kingdom of Balloons. Once there, Chris is granted audience with King Helio, the king of the balloons, who gives Chris the power to inflate and deflate at will. As it turns out, instead of ending up in the throats and stomachs of myriad sea life, lost balloons have banded together in the clouds to form a society with an economy based on marshmallows. If anything, this might be heaven. I mean, they've got a king with weird powers, another guy who will sell you powers who has a beard, and I don't know what we could use for a Holy Spirit analog. Maybe this green guy. I mean, he is mysterious, elusive, and gives you lightning bolts, and that's totally what the Holy Spirit does, right? Anyway, since Chris is such a nice guy and doesn't want to stay a balloon himself, he decides to go and save the other kids before taking down Kid Dracula. King Helio also advises Chris that he can pick up a couple magic spells to make his life easier, as well as making murder that much more convenient. From the Balloon Kingdom, Chris can float his way to Malaysia, Mexico, Japan, LA, or Siberia, with some additional options opening up later in the game. Now at this point, between the inflation, the deflation, and the food-based economy, you might think this sounds a lot like Kirby, but not quite. Instead of being a float or an extended glide, Chris's balloon mechanic is more like a gravity reversal. Instead of going down, you go up, and things are a little bit looser control-wise. Almost all of the stages in The Adventure of Chris take advantage of this fact, making it rather easy to get where you're going if you stay in balloon form, but making you die in one hit if you haven't purchased an upgrade that prevents that. If you keep to your feet, you're bound to encounter more combat, and you better come ready to platform. Pretty much every stage you encounter requires a mix of these two disciplines to get through and to get everything you need. Each stage also manages to keep things fresh by switching up how the different enemies attack you, and giving you things like ice cream, giant diamonds, and giant balloons to find and improve your abilities. All in all, it feels like The Adventures of Chris would have been right at home on one of the consoles available during its 1995 setting. The challenges all feel fair, the difficulty curve increases reasonably, and there's nothing that a little farming for marshmallows to get a new upgrade can't fix. You also start out the gate with infinite respawns, which you are going to need, especially if you're going into this blind. Another aspect I enjoyed was how the game switches things up after your battle with Anubis towards the end of the game. Kid Dracula returns and once again disables your ability to deflate, forcing you to learn how to move around the stages by blowing in midair. It's a nice change of pace, but unfortunately only lasts for a level or two before coming back briefly in the final boss fight. Now if you're wondering at this point, how do I play this? My answer is, I don't entirely know. You see, the game made it to Steam Greenlight, it made it through Steam Greenlight, and then Chris decided he was going to overhaul everything. The Greenlight page for The Adventures of Chris says that release is slated for spring of 2015. If you've noticed the timestamp on this video, it's almost a year later already. Updates and announcements for the game also seem to be fairly lacking, although it appears Chris himself was floating around in the comments for the game as recently as last November. There's been no official announcement of cancellation for the game, so hopefully things are just taking a lot longer than Chris expected. Alternatively, maybe there's hope of getting the non-HD version so we at least get something, because this is a pretty decent little game. As a Chris myself, who was also tubby in 7th grade and definitely enjoyed a very large sundae now and then, The Adventures of Chris really resonated with me. But, for now, it seems the only way to experience this game is to pick up the tiny box of broken dreams known as the Ouya. Or you could always watch me play through the PC build I have. I mean, I had to get the footage somehow, right? Either way, here's hoping The Adventures of Chris does make it to PC in some form, someday. It's a worthwhile little game, and definitely deserves more players getting their hands on it. Hey, Nagobun here. Thanks for watching. If you like clicking stuff, try clicking some of the stuff that's on screen right now. It's mostly self-explanatory, though if you click the video, it should take you back one in the playlist. Unless there is no back one in the playlist, in which case, it won't do anything. If you're on mobile, none of it will do anything because annotations don't work on there, and you're going to have to do things the hard way. Luckily, there's some links in the About section that should save you a little bit of trouble.